The Greatness of Oliver Byrne. Act 1. Bellator's Revenge. Prologue. The motion-sensitive outside light flickered on and began to buzz in the dark night hour, and Jackson Bates was reminded for the 1,000th time that he needed to find someone who could rewire it. After living in this world for so long, he still wasn't used to this level of technology, and he knew he would just screw it up if he tried. He was much better at breaking things and people down. Putting them together was someone else's job. Ironic, then, that he'd chosen to become a math teacher. Reaching into the pocket of his khakis and pulling out his keys, Mr. Bates opened the back door of his house and stepped into the dark interior. With a sigh, he took the 7 steps across his small kitchen and approached the small kitchen table, pulling his old worn leather satchel from around his shoulder to put it in the chair that was used more by his satchel than by anyone else, even him. The moment the satchel was still, he felt the disturbance, and froze. From one of the front pockets of the satchel, he drew his defense, the thin, lightly textured metal cylinder with the single inset button. Of all the ones he'd ever used, this was the most minimalist in its design, but he found it elegant and simple. It fit with his new life. It was sufficient to purge whatever was now in his house uninvited and, Bates now felt clearly, was standing right behind him. As he turned, the bright blade extended both blade and energy sheath in a near-instant snap hiss, and the deep red glow lit up the kitchen as the extending tip of the weapon stopped just under the chin of the intruder. The small, scrawny man with the thin goatee yelped and put his hands up. "Gelbos, it's just me!" came his hissed, panicked whisper. "In my house?" said Bates, narrowing his eyes. "And you know I answer to that name no longer, Felix. What's so important that you'd risk being skewered?" Felix eyed the blade and raised an eyebrow. Red? Where did the purple go?" "Gone, along with my patience, Felix," growled Bates, inching the thin red tip close enough to singe the bottom of Felix's chin. The smaller, unarmed man knew it was time to talk. "They've done it," Felix said quickly. "The Vice. They've solved the mystery of the Tempus Illud." Bates froze and felt his heart skip a beat. That meant it was here. It was time. He had to know more. He pulled the bright blade away from Felix's neck, and they spoke in the red glow of the weapon. "When? How?" Felix found one of the nearby chairs at Bates's table and took a seat. "Well, all right, they say they have. Yes, I know they've claimed it before, but this time is different." "Different how?" "Both Kaidat Otheroi and Kaidat Mendrin have put out a statement to their factions that they are now cooperating." That didn't seem possible. The two Vice Kaidats were dedicated religiously to the destruction of one another's factions. "What does cooperating mean?" he asked. Felix ran a hand through his thinning, combed-over hair. "They've agreed to share intel. Mendrin says his people have a working theory and access to a jump gate specialist. Otheroi controls the last jump gate on this world, so he's agreed to let his people supervise the work." "Those jump gates were all deactivated a decade ago," said Bates. "I saw to it myself." "But you left one intact for future use, Gelbos," said Felix. And when Bates heard the name and lifted the blade again, Felix held up his hands and smirked. "Sorry, Batten or Bama or whatever. What name did you choose again when you were exiled as a Death Theory?" Bates felt the red beginning to boil within, and he did his best to suppress it. "Do you have your bright blade, Felix? What color is it?" Felix's smirk vanished, and he glared at Bates. "Still white. So no potential for you, Still have yet to find a Taiki who wants you? How long has it been, Felix? 5 years and you're still an adept." Felix rose from his chair, and for a moment he looked like he wanted to attack Bates. Bates only grinned, almost laughing at the prospect. But Felix was too crafty to let Bates slaughter him in his kitchen, and he recovered his composure momentarily. "You do what you want with this nugget of news I brought you. You're welcome." "I didn't say thank you yet, Felix," said Bates. "You didn't answer all of my questions, and I know you're not going to, but I still want one more thing." Really, what's that? Why tell me this at all? Felix looked away and shrugged. Just being a good friend, he tried. It didn't take. Try again. I don't know what you want from me, Bates, Felix sighed, throwing his hands up. Bates held up the long edge of the blade and grabbed Felix by the collar of his flamboyant, expensive shirt. He held the blade long ways under his chin and drank in the contempt and fear he saw in Felix's eyes. Yes, you do. You know exactly what I want. And you know the deadline I gave you is coming up in a few days, and you are here telling me this news because you have nothing for me. Am I hot or cold, Felix? Felix gulped, which caused his neck to barely touch the edge of the energy sheath that surrounded the bright blade. It sizzled, and he squeezed his eyes shut. You're hot, Bates. Burning hot. Then don't let me see you again until you give me what I've asked for. No more substitutions. If you don't deliver what you promised soon, well, let's just say you'll be serving detention with me. Understood? Perfectly, Bellator, Felix whispered, hoping the added honorific would give him points. It didn't really matter one way or the other now. Good. Get out. Bates released him and withdrew his bright blade. Another metallic hiss snapped, putting him back into the dark of his unlit home. He felt Felix's presence recede through the vigor, and when he was confident he was no longer able to be seen, he grabbed his satchel and pulled out his class record book, flipping through until he came to his fourth period class. He'd had them all write down their personal contact information on the first day of school, and now he searched desperately for an address. If what Felix had told him was true, high school sophomore Oliver Byrne was now in mortal danger, and the poor kid had absolutely no idea.